I'm not sure. Oh, sounds better now.
Yeah.
Carrie, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Oh, Kira.
I don't know. We're being recorded. Can you hear us now? Okay,
Yeah.
very good. Well, welcome to the Stranded Knitting class. I already knew Barb and Jerry, and is it Kara or Kara?
Kira.
Kara. Nice to meet you. I'm Marta.
Nice meeting you.
Now, Jerry, I know has knit hats before. How about you, Kara or Barb?
Yes.
Okay. And have you, Barb?
Yes, I have, but it seems like my stitching across the back, that I carry over is too tight, and then the hat doesn't fit anybody, so.
Oh, you're talking about doing stranded?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah, you've
we
knit
did
other
that.
hats?
We did that probably about, I don't know, 5, 6 years.
Okay.
And here's what I got out of it. So, well, I guess that's supposed to hang up like that, but it sure didn't turn out big enough to fit on anything or anybody.
Yeah, and there's not
And-
going to be much elasticity in Fair Isle either.
Yeah, and so I found that out. So it sits on my little goat over here as
Sure.
his own hat. Introduce you to my goat.
Oh, that's really cute. I like the pattern of your hat. Well, this is the hat that you're going to be knitting with what we're working on today.
Cute.
And I had you cast on and work some stockinette in the round, and then a purl row, and then a couple more rounds of stockinette. And that's because the brim is folded up at the purl row, so you don't have any ribbing here at the bottom. Now in this particular one, I did not do that couple rounds of stockinette after the purled row. It's a matter of choice. I guess if I were to knit it again, I would put them in, and that's why I had you do it.
I guess I'm not that far into it, so.
Okay. Well, to begin with, we'll take a look at knitting with two colors. Switch cameras here. So I'm a continental knitter, which means I hold the yarn in my left hand as I knit. And some people call it picking because they go into the stitch and pick the yarn or scoop the yarn with their needle. Some people are throwers or English knitters and hold their yarn in the right hand. So they enter the stitch and then bring the yarn around the needle that way, often having to let go of that needle as they wrap. Now with the stranded knitting, you're going to do both. So who here is a continental knitter or a picker? You hold the yarn in your left hand. Anybody? All right, so that's where our learning curve is going to be today. So again, you're going to enter as usual. I usually wrap the yarn between my fingers. And you can either use your finger to wrap it around, or you can grab it with that hand. But I want you to just try to make a couple of stitches with your left hand. So again, entering the stitch and then either wrapping the yarn with your finger or grabbing it with your needle. And it's going to feel awkward. And now what I'd like you to do is go around that whole round, alternating one left hand with the color you were just knitting with and one right hand with the other color. And I don't join the new yarn in any particular way. I just start knitting with it.
This is Kara. I am not getting any video at all.
Really?
No.
Jerry and Barb, can you see it?
Yep.
Okay, well, I think I'm going to just stop because this isn't, I'm not going to be getting anything out of this.
Well, let's see if we can try to figure it out.
Do you have the camera might down in the bottom on my machine, down in the bottom left corner, there is a video camera. Maybe yours is off.
No, because we can see.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, I can see myself even, but I can't see anybody else.
Okay, in the upper right hand corner, do you have the word view?
Yeah, let me get up there.
And then you could put it on speaker.
I got it on speaker view. Do I need to go to gallery view?
No, gallery view will just show you everybody like the Brady Bunch.
Yeah, and
Karen,
the only
you haven't
person.
seen it?
Okay, speaker view. Yeah, I've got nobody but me.
Are you on an iPad or are you on a computer?
I do have an Apple computer. It's not an iPad, but I have an Apple computer.
That's what I'm on too. So you should still be able to see the video.
Do you have a square that has my name on it? Or what
Yep.
are you seeing?
Yep, I do.
And is it just black or what?
It's just black. Everybody's black except me. Yeah, like I said, I think I'm just gonna step back out of here. So I can't figure out what's going on.
Well, I'm sorry that you're having trouble. I hate to
Okay.
have you jump out if we could figure it out, but
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where to even begin with this. Interesting. Okay, have fun.
yeah, I'm very sorry, Kara.
Okay.
Well, that's a bummer. Okay. Jerry and Barb, are you getting anywhere doing your alternating?
I have a hard time alternating.
I did too at first. But I found that if I worked as similarly as I could to my opposite hand, it was better. So for instance, I'm a picker. It's better for me to hold my yarn wrapped around my fingers the same way in the right hand as I do in the left. So I don't know how you hold your yarn in your right hand, but if you hold it the same way in your left, it might help. I also find that at the beginning, I would wrap it around somewhat loosely and then sort of try to tension it as I drew the stitch through. Nothing happens overnight with this. Learning to tension your yarn with your opposite hand is a matter of doing it over and over and over again. Plus, you need to try to make sure that your tension is the same in both hands so that your stitches are even. Otherwise, you're going to get lumpy, bumpy stuff. But I just want to encourage you to keep going. When you've finished the round, just stop for a moment and we'll talk.
Now, which hand should you be doing the contrasting color, Marta?
Well, I would suggest doing that in your right hand. However, There are conflicting schools of thought on this. Some say the yarn on the left is dominant. Some say the yarn on the right is dominant. And in fact, I think it's a matter of which hand is tighter is going to be the recessed color, and which hand is looser is going to be the more prominent color. So you might want to take that into consideration.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
also believe that if you can get your tension pretty much equal in both hands, you're not going to have to worry about yarn dominance at all. And that's what the teacher I took the class from last weekend said too, is that yarn dominance to her isn't an issue because she just worked at getting the tension the same in both hands.
Yeah, that's the kicker.
Yeah. But you'll get there. If I can, you can. I
Okay.
didn't get as far with the master knitted program as you did.
Oh, they didn't have this.
No, no, they didn't. Well, and up until the last year or two, I would typically just put both strands over my left finger. But then I would find if I did several stitches with one color before going to the other one again, I would have a big loose strand of the other yarn because they would feed together through my hand.
Yeah.
My favorite way of knitting Fair Isle is using Portuguese knitting and a knitting pin. So you hook a pin to your shirt, and I use two when I'm doing stranded. And one yarn goes from my knitting up onto a pin and then into my hand. And I have one in each hand, but the left thumb does all the work. It just flicks the yarn around the needle. Now it's also all purling rather than all knitting, but it's something you might look into if you're really interested in it.
It's called Portuguese.
Yes. Anna Compost taught the class that I took in that on the Vogue Virtual Knitting Live, and it was very good. And if you don't have a pin, they just put the yarn around the neck.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
And I can't do that. The tension of how it moves across my neck feels gross to me. So I use the pins, or actually I use chip clips, but it's all the same
Yeah.
concept.
Yeah.
Are you coming? Barb, did you get to the end of your round?
Not yet,
Oh, okay.
but I am able to pick off of my finger really well.
Good.
So, yeah, if I remember to do it though, when I get going fast, then I slip back to old habits. So,
Sure. Yep. Sometimes being very slow and deliberate is the way to learn something new.
Yeah.
Marta, I
think-
see Kara is back. Kara,
Yes, I see that.
are you able to see us now, Kara?
I don't know if she can hear you. Oh. I wonder if her bandwidth an issue. It may be, Kara, that if your bandwidth is too narrow, you're not able to get the signal through very well on the video. It might help if you turn your own camera off.
I don't have a pattern or anything. What were we supposed to have done for?
Okay, I
days
emailed it
that
out last night. And you should have it, it might come in your spam folder, but it came from classes@northcountryfiberfair.org. I'll drop it here in the chat. There, if you check your chat window, it should be there.
Yeah, and my spam, it won't let me download it because it's something like mail track.
Yeah,
It
it's
says attachment cannot.
what was that?
So it's in the. I don't see it there either.
Is it in your chat window?
Nope. Can you email it using Gmail or something like that?
What's that?
I got your email last night, but it went into my spam. Okay, so let me try this.
Let me see if I can email it to you using this address. Okay, I sent it. You might need to give it a minute or two.
Okay.
Your video and sound are cluttered when you talk to us. I wonder if turning off your camera would help with the bandwidth there.
But I gotta get the download too, because I don't have anything started on this yet.
Okay. Did you get the email about the homework earlier the week?
No, I did not.
Okay.
And you sent this to kswein@yahoo.com? Oh, here
Yes,
it is.
same email that you had on your order.
Okay. I'm not gonna be able to catch up. I'm just gonna watch.
Did the handout come in your email now?
Yeah, I got that.
The homework was just the first couple of sections there, the casting on and working a couple inches. But if you just want to cast on one round and start working, you can do that just so that you can learn the skills.
Okay. Because I can't see you again now. I don't know what's going on. I think I probably got internet problems, so.
That's what I would suspect.
Sarah,
Okay,
I think that you might. Can you turn your video off? So we don't see you.
well,
Does that help with seeing Marta?
You want to unmute her? Are you having any more luck, Kara?
I got the video off. I can see you again. We'll see how long it
Okay.
lasts.
Okay. Well, I've just been having everybody work alternating colors around. Were you able to hear me when I talked about how to hold the yarn in the opposite hand?
Nope.
Okay. Are you a left-hand yarn holder or a right-hand yarn holder?
I knit English. I've got it
Okay.
in my left hand.
Okay. So you can start at any point and just pick up and knit with your other color then, once you get a row cast on.
Okay.
And to do the continental or picking, get my hand under the camera here. So you're going to enter the stitch as usual and either grab the yarn with your needle or wrap it around with your left hand, whichever works best for you, and draw it through. And then I'm just having everybody practice that by alternating every other stitch. So one stitch with one color with your dominant hand, one stitch with the other color with your non-dominant hand.
Okay.
You may have heard of yarn dominance in the past. I don't believe that yarn dominance needs to be a thing if you can work out your tension to be equal in both hands. You won't see one pop more than the other.
Okay.
Jerry and Barb, are you getting close to finishing that one round?
Mm. Close. Can
Okay.
you,
I'm through the round. Sorry.
I'm not a real fast knitter, so
That's okay.
at
I'm
least
just
I'll
trying
knit-
to, since I can't see what you're doing, I had to ask.
Yeah, can you, I throw with my right hand.
Yeah,
Okay, so can you show me how you hold your left hand again?
yes.
Okay,
Just like this.
okay. Are you you're picking then?
And
That's where
well, I kind of do a hybrid of picking and wrapping. I move my finger, but I also grab with the needle.
okay, I see. Yeah.
If you have trouble with the yarn being a little floppy, I find it can help if I wrap my pinky around, wrap the yarn around my pinky once before running it through the rest of my fingers. That gives me a little bit more control.
Yeah, that's my problem. The control of the tension on my left hand is not so good.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, this feels really awkward, which I have not felt for a long time in my knitting.
Uh-huh. Sometimes it's good for us to get something like that.
Ah,
Definitely good for our brains to work something in a different way.
yes, I'm sure that's the case. Especially when you're getting older.
Yeah. I used to hear about people wanting to improve their thinking, mental processing, whatever, would do things that they normally do with their right hand with their left. For instance, brushing their teeth. Supposed to be really good for your brain. I don't know. I don't think brushing my teeth with the opposite hand is going to have the effect I want.
Okay.
But I do try to learn new things as often as possible.
Yeah, I think it helps.
Well, just for a moment, I'm going to get out my hat that I knit. And we're going to look at the inside. All those little strands, people call them different things, but primarily I think people call them floats, because the yarn is going to float along the back of the work or the non-public side of the work. And this is really the key to stranded knitting, is keeping those at a correct gauge or tension. And the way that you do that is by making sure when you have more than one stitch in a given color, that you spread your stitches out along the needle before making the next stitch with the other color. I'll give you an example here. I'll knit 3 red. And now if I were to just take those as I had knit them and knit a gray, you see how close they are together. And that float along the back is relatively short. And by the time I knit another stitch a few stitches later with that, that is going to pull those stitches together. I don't know how well you can see that here on the screen. And we don't want that. So before you knit that next stitch after a series, you want to make sure that you spread the stitches out on the needle to give that float all of the slack that it needs. I even will go after I make that stitch and just kind of manipulate things. And then I go on. So once you've finished your first round of all alternating stitches, I want you to make the first stitch of your next round your contrast color, and then do 3 of your main color and 1 of the contrast all the way around. So 1 contrast, 3 main color. And that 1 contrast should end up being knitted into the stitch below that's of the main color, not of the contrast. So you see here I've got gray knitting into red every time. So once you've finished a first round alternating colors, then I want you to do that round of 1, 3, 1, 3. Kara, were you able to find the class handout now, either in the chat window or in your email?
Yep, I've got it. I'm printing it out.
Very good.
I don't think I'm gonna be able to catch up with you guys, but I'm just gonna watch the video, I think.
Okay.
The part about stretching your stitches out already helps a lot, because I've never done that before when I've been trying to do Fair Isle.
Mhm.
Marta, I think I accidentally muted you. Do you want to unmute?
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. I saw that you had done it, but I wasn't worried about it just yet.
Okay.
How's everybody doing?
It still looks a little tight, but practice.
Yes. My piano teacher didn't just have me repeat things 3 times, she had me repeat them 3 times correctly. So that's the kind of thing that I have my students do as well. That's why I'm having you practice over and over and over. One thing I didn't put in the pattern or in the required materials was stitch markers. But you will probably want several to mark off the different sections. Something else I wanted to mention with gauge is when you're knitting stranded in the round, if you are using more than one needle, for example, 2 circulars or even magic loop or double points, you can end up, excuse me, having loose stitches where the needles come together and get a laddering effect. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't use multiple needles, but if you do, you might want to knit one more from each needle each time so that the join moves of where those needles join together. But otherwise, I'm assuming most of you are working on one singular circular. Then okay, Jerry? Jerry, how's it going?
Good. Well, you know,
How far have you
Practice.
gotten?
practice, practice, practice.
Yes. Are you all the way around yet?
Yeah.
Okay.
I
So-
am just starting on my one color, next color around, but it's gonna take me a while to get all the way around on that. So if you want to go on with something, I'll just,
Okay, I was just going to talk about chart reading for a moment. So if you look at the charts on the second page, how many of you are familiar with reading charts for knitting?
Oh, I love
If
charts.
before, or Barb and Kara, have you both done charts? Or not so much?
Kara, I think it's only been like 2 projects though, and they were
Okay.
very simple charts.
Okay,
I have
So-
done some too on reading the charts. So I am kind of familiar with that.
okay. Well, if you look at the charts, you'll see that I numbered both the rows and the columns. When I'm reading somebody else's chart, if they don't have the columns numbered, I will go in and number them because I'm just like that. I've got to know where I'm at. My grid is every 4 stitches rather than what some people might expect of 5, but that's just because of how the chart comes out. It's a 4-stitch multiple, not a 5-stitch multiple. On your 120 stitch hat, you're going to have 6 repeats of this chart for the snowflakes. Now you've already done the first 2 rounds. Round 1 was the alternating. Round 2 was the every 3. And I spoke incorrectly when I told you to do the first one contrasting as I look at it, but the same token, I also told you to do the contrast color first when you were alternating every other one. So either way, I'm gonna share this because bothering me that I can't. Carrie, would you allow me to share my screen, please?
Yep, 1 second here. I'm not seeing where to do that, Marta.
Okay,
If you have a printed one, Marta, you could just lay it there where your knitting is.
I could if I had a printed one.
Oh, okay.
Tell you what I can do is I'll show you I don't print patterns anymore. I use the Knit Companion app.
I like the piece of paper.
Yeah. Give me 1 second here to get this.
Here, I found it, Marta, so.
Okay.
There we go.
So this is the chart I'm looking at, the snowflake chart. And so we did round 1, alternating colors, round 2, background 3, contrast 1. If yours is opposite, that's okay. You can change when you get to round 4. In mine, the black squares are the pattern or the contrast color. Initially, the charts were always done like that because it was written out on graph paper. And so you just filled in the squares where the contrast color would be, where the pattern would be. But with modern charting software, some people put in the colors that they intend for you to use in their pattern or whatever. But in this case, white is your background color and black is your contrast color. You might find it helpful when you have longer stretches of stitches to write that number in your chart so you don't have to keep remembering to count it. For example, in rounds 5 through 8, you have 7 stitches in the white before moving on to the black. Another reason I have the grid there is to help with that, but if you find it helpful, you can write that in. Once you've finished the first 3 rounds, you'll notice there's a round that's just your background color. You do not need to carry your contrast color around with it. You can just leave it hanging at your join and pick it up again when you come back. But you'll notice that the round 5, your contrast color doesn't come in again until the 8th stitch. So you're going to need to do something to bring that background color over, because if you just stretch it over from the join to there up around, you might find it kind of wonky. In addition, depending on your gauge, you want to trap your float about once an inch or slightly less, maybe 7/8 of an inch or 3/4 of an inch, depending on what it's going to be. If you're making mitts for your hands, you don't want your fingers to get caught, you're going to trap your yarn more often. If you're doing a hat like this one, you may not need to do any trapping because no fingers are going to go in there necessarily. Over time, if you're using natural animal fibers, it's going to felt to itself anyway and have less of that catch. But in the meantime, it's good to capture or trap that yarn. And I will demonstrate that in a little while, but I want to make sure we all get at least those first 3 rounds done before I demonstrate that. So let me know when you've got your first 3 rounds done. Oh, one other thing I wanted to mention with chart reading is you may find it helpful to put a piece of paper above the row that you're working on so you can see what came before and not be confused by anything coming later. Easy to keep your place that way. You might use something like a post-it note, depending on how wide your chart is. I've used several post-it notes in a row before for a larger chart. Some people just tick it off with the pencil as they go, so they know which one they're on. Like I said before, it will be helpful if you have some stitch markers to mark off your repeats so you don't get lost. I always get lost if I don't use stitch markers.
What I found is helpful too is to use the same color for the repeats, but a different color for the beginning or the end, however you want to put it, but
Yep.
what the end of the row or round.
Yep, absolutely. I do the same thing. I would love to see your work if you want to hold it up. Good. Your colors are so close.
Well,
Kind of-
white in a darker gray, so it's kind of hard to
Yep.
see in this light.
Yep. But it looks like you're doing good. Yeah, that's really good, Barb. This class is listed as 3 hours and I will stay that whole time if you want me to, but if we get done with my presentation and you feel like you're comfortable and want to go, you can. But I'm here for the whole time if you want me. I'm going to put my email address in the chat so that if you have any problems later, you can contact me. I don't know if you noticed that one of the charts is called lice. And yes, that's not a typo. That is what they are called. I think it's pretty self-explanatory why. They're typically white on black.
I thought that was kind of funny.
Yep. This is a very typical Norwegian design. And they're the ones that call them lice.
Ooh.
If you want to take a break for just a moment, I'm going to talk about trapping the yarn. As you're working, you may have noticed that the yarn in your right hand always comes over the top of the yarn in your left, and the yarn in your left hand always comes from underneath the right. So here I'm about to do my contrast color, and that's going to come across the top here of my red. And so now this red is trapped underneath the gray. Can you see that? And then when I go to knit a red stitch, it looks side by side because it's still underneath the gray, and it will always stay that way. When you are going to trap your float, the yarn coming across the back, if I were going to do it on this next stitch, I insert my needle, and in order to get this trapped but not knit with it, it has to cross over. So I'm going to wrap as though I'm going to knit with it, then wrap with the red, and then bring the gray back around. So you see now the gray is trapped below the red. I can knit another red stitch. And then go on to knit my gray. And if you look at the back, here is what I was doing before, where I carried that gray across the back of the 3 red stitches. Here, I knit the gray, I knit 1 red, and then I trapped the gray. So you don't see that long float. There's a gentleman that teaches a class in the Vogue Knitting virtual lineup, and his class is called Locked Floats, and he traps every other stitch. And if you do that, you end up with a really super dense, less flexible material, or it has less hand to it. Doesn't drape as well, but it's extremely warm. You may already know that stranded knitting or Fair Isle is pretty warm because of the floats in the back. But when you lock all the floats like that, that really makes it dense. So now I mentioned trapping your float or locking your float within about 1 inch, depending on what it is you're making. If you're making something for children, you probably want to trap more often because those little fingers can get into a shorter amount of space than your adult fingers can.
Will you do that again, Marta?
Yeah.
The trapping thing that you did?
Yep, absolutely.
It looked all right when you showed us, but then when I tried to do it, it didn't
Yep.
make sense.
So insert the needle,
Yeah,
wrap with the yarn you're trapping, wrap with the yarn you're knitting with, unwrap the yarn you're trapping. So the only yarn that comes through the stitch is the one you're
Okay.
knitting with.
okay.
And it will look different when you trap the other way. If I want to trap this red yarn and knit with the gray, I just need to get it in the way. Just a second here. So I need to get the red in the way of the gray. So I'm going to pull it between the needles to sit in the V made by the 2 needles, wrap with the gray, and then move the red back and knit with the gray.
So that would avoid getting all the twisting.
Well, you shouldn't have any twisting.
Yeah, okay. I'm with
When
you.
you're always knitting your left hand yarn with your left hand and your right hand yarn with your right hand. You don't need to do any kind of twisting. The trapping simply keeps the floats from getting too long.
Right, but the way I was doing my trapping, it was twisting the yarn.
Ah,
So that's a good thing to know.
yep. Now, the other thing you want to be aware of is don't trap at the same point in every round, or that yarn, that background color will, or that color that you're trapping will show through in a vertical line. So you're going to want to alternate. If I have a series of, say, 10 stitches, I might trap the 5th stitch on one round and the 3rd and 7th on the next, and alternate back and forth that way. Ask me how I learned that lesson. The really fun part about stranded knitting isn't making the X's that I'm having you make right at the moment, but things like this big snowflake that's coming. To see that show up in your fabric is so rewarding. You really feel a sense of accomplishment when it comes out. You wouldn't have to use the lice, but they help keep the sweater or whatever it is equally thick throughout, because you'll still have stranded floats along the back. Whereas if you just went to straight stockinette after the patterning, your gauge would be different again, and you wouldn't have that double thickness that you have with the floats in there.
Cool.
If you find after you finish your hat that it's huge, you could try felting it a bit if you used natural fibers. dropping a picture into chat that shows the first stranded sweater that I made. You're muted, Jerry.
That's really cute.
Thank you. I was trying to be all cool in the yarn shop and talk to the lady in Norwegian, but I couldn't remember the name for the shade of pink I wanted. I wanted a dusty rose. And the lady, and I hadn't said a word of English yet. The lady says to me, "You can say it in English." She knew. I was mortified. I was 20. What did I know?
Cute.
How far are you guys now?
I'm to the first row of the flower.
Okay. If you want to go ahead and start that, you sure can. Just make sure you trap your yarn when you need to.
Yeah, I'll try your method.
How about you, Barb? How far are you?
I'm still doing the 3 and the 1 white,
Okay.
and I think I figured out the trapping, so
Okay. Good.
by mistake, but no,
Well, that's
it
okay.
looks, it looks
Never gets
okay.
you there, right?
So yeah, it's coming along, and I am almost done with this 3-in-1 thing here. So
All right. Kara, are you still with us or are you just waiting to do the video?
I'm still listening. I didn't see your picture of your project though.
Good. Oh, it's in the chat, or should be. It might take a little longer if your internet is off.
Okay.
Hmm.
That was a very thoughtful, I think you are the quietest group of knitters I've ever worked with.
That's because we're concentrating.
I can tell. What's so funny, Jerry?
My hands just don't want to do that float thing.
Uh-huh.
Just not, I know what it's supposed to look like when I'm done, but my
Yeah.
fingers just do not want to cooperate with the one in each hand. Yeah, yeah.
The main reason I wanted you to do it one in each hand, like I said, there was the issue that I had when I had them both in the same hand, that one would get long and floppy when the other one still had some tension on it. But also the trapping is easier to conceptualize when you have one hand in each hand.
I don't know if that's necessarily true. Not in
Okay.
my brain at the moment, anyway.
Well, and this comes back also to my philosophy that there's no wrong way if you get the right results. So
Yeah.
that being said, if you prefer to put both yarns in the same hand, if you prefer to drop one and pick up the other one, some people do that. However it works for you to get the job done correctly is fine.
The float thing looks better though with your method, and I'm not getting that either way.
Are you talking about trapping the float?
Yeah, trapping.
Okay.
I'm not, could you do it again? Once?
Yes, absolutely.
I might have to sit next to you or something the next time we get together. Boy.
I would be happy to do that. All right, so I'm going to knit one red. Now I'll trap the gray.
You're a little, Marta,
Sorry.
there you go. That's better.
So again, insert,
Yeah.
wrap with the one you're trapping, wrap with the one you're knitting with, unwrap with the one you're trapping, and draw the yarn through.
Yeah, so it traps it kind of. Yeah, it makes a nice trap back there.
Yep.
I did it once and it looks really nice, but I
Good.
can't do it again. I
You
don't know
will.
if I did it accidentally or what.
It'll come. And how about trapping the other one? Do you want me to do that one again?
Yeah,
So if I'm going to trap the red, I've got to get it stitch going here. So I want to trap the red yarn. So I'm going to bring it forward so that it's between the two needles in that V, in the crotch of
Okay.
the V.
hmm
Wrap with the yarn I'm knitting with, and then take it out of the V and bring it back to the back again.
Okay.
I tell you what, I'll write up instructions for the trapping and email those to you. I just hadn't had time to get anything of that nature done for you.
Part of what's hard for me when I do this with my right hand, the one in my right hand, I'm literally picking, I'm not throwing.
Yep.
So then when I try to pick it up, it's more of an effort to undo the contrast, to get the contrasting one off of there because of how I was picking.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I'll practice.
Yes. I was in Norway 2 years ago and I bought this yarn there, but I bought enough to make a Norwegian sweater cardigan and the hat and the stockings, the knee stockings.
Wow.
I have yet to do that. I've just done this hat, but I still have that yarn and I still have the pattern. But the snowflake is my favorite of the Norwegian stranded patterning. So that particular pattern is from the area called Setesdal. And that's what I'm gonna knit for my sweater when I eventually get to it.
One repeat then.
So Arna and Carlos on their blog right now, they're going through Setesdal and talking with a lot of knit crafters in the area. It's kind of interesting on their podcast.
That's really cool.
Is that part of that series they're doing with Norwegian heritage with the knitting? And I
Yeah,
watched the first two, but I don't think I'm gonna have to watch this one today too then.
yeah, that's the Norwegian heritage. They are part of that is doing a tour of Setesdal. So each person they interview is in a different spot in Setesdal.
Oh, yep, yep.
I dropped a document into your chat that explains how to trap your floats. Nothing fancy, just typed it out. Gonna make me want to yawn.
My hubby got me up way too early this morning.
I'm the early riser in my family.
Oh, I am usually, but he was dreaming about fixing this car he bought, so he said he couldn't sleep anymore.
Uh-huh.
He was up like at 6 or something ridiculous, which
That's
is,
sleeping in for me.
oh, well,
I'm
we're
usually up around
retired,
5.
Marta. We're retired.
Well, I don't work. I just can't sleep any later than that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Now, do you still have kids in school?
Nope, I have one daughter and she's at SDSU. She's a
Oh,
senior this
okay.
year, but she'll have another year after this. She started with a theater and English education major, and last year, at the beginning of second semester, she dropped the English education major, dropped the education part entirely, and is an English minor. So just meant she had some extra classes in there that she had to take, so it's going to take her more than 4 years.
So what you want to do with that?
She wants to be a prop master for a theater.
Oh, interesting.
She loves doing props. That's what her work study is.
Mm.
She was the head of props for Prairie Repertory Theater this last summer. Designed and built the puppets for Audrey for Little Shop of Horrors, the plant. Not the really huge one, but the puppets that they used in the beginning.
They were very impressive.
Well, thank you. I will pass that on to her.
One of our daughters has a theater major also, but she went back and got communication studies with it, and does that now. She teaches at Presentation College up there in Aberdeen,
Okay.
and likes that a lot. She's still very active in theater, but
Yep.
she doesn't do that as a work.
Yeah. There's a gal here in Britain. Well, she's not here anymore, but she was. Her parents still live here. She is probably, I would say, between 5 and 10 years older than Catherine. Probably closer to 10, now that I think about it. But she has toured the country with different theater companies. She was in Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, and I don't know what else she was in, but several. Her mother is the one that ran for governor a couple times ago.
Oh,
There's a young lady from Brookings who works in New York, sewing costumes for theaters.
Cool. Wasn't that Lindsay's major, costuming? I think it was. Lindsay Nordsieden.
yeah, she did theater because she and my daughter Deb are buddies, but I don't remember what she had for a major.
Yeah.
She did major in theater, but I didn't realize it was in costumes.
I think it was. I could be wrong, but I think so.
But it kind of makes sense. She is a very artsy person, so.
Yes.
Yeah.
very much so. That's one sad thing about not going to Brookings ever anymore, is I don't get to see people like her.
Yeah.
And you, Jerry.
Well, you could come down here.
I could, yeah.
First Tuesday of the month is our guild meeting, but I have to admit Lindsay hasn't been there for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, she hasn't. Now you say
I
that.
actually was down for a board meeting a couple years ago decided to grab lunch at the bistro, the Cottonwood Bistro, before the meeting, and Lindsay was there with a friend, so sat and got caught up with them. Another time I had supper with her at the Hy-Vee Deli. Just by chance ran into her. How are you doing, Barb? You're hard at work, I can see. You're muted. I can't hear you.
Well, I'm trying to straighten out. When I started that first row, I started, one color, the other color, and
Yeah.
I'm trying to start at that or straighten that out so I have the 3 and then the white. And now I've got an extra one here, but
It happens.
yeah,
In the finished product, nobody else will know there's anything different than what the pattern said because they don't know the pattern.
right. And if this works out the way I'm doing it, it should get them all tangled up. But I think I got it.
When I first started stranded knitting with that sweater way back when, I didn't know about keeping one above the other. So I was twisting the yarns around each other every time I changed the color
Oh,
because I didn't know any different. And that was a lot of work. And it was a lot of tangle. I think it took me at least 3 years, at least maybe 4 to finish it. Because I was in school and then I was working and
I did the same thing. I can remember the light bulb went on at some course I took,
yeah.
and it was quite interesting.
Sometime before that, I had started an intarsia sweater. Didn't know
Yeah.
the word intarsia, that wasn't a part of it. I think they called it picture knitting in the 80s. But anyway, it was just some geometric shapes built into the sweater. And again, not having anybody around me that did any knitting, I didn't know who to ask any help from. So these blocks have big holes around the edges because I didn't know you had to twist at the beginning of each one of those in intarsia.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's
that was
why
a
I
sweater never got done.
That's why I twisted all of it when I started doing Fair Isle, or tried to do it, because I'd done some intarsia and that's what they said. So I assumed that that was the case with all
Sure.
colored knitting, but yeah, it's much easier if you don't do that.
Yep.
I grew up in a city where there were multiple local yarn stores. And whenever my mom had a question, we'd just head off to the local yarn store and she'd ask and they'd help her and she'd figure everything out. And, I like living in smaller towns, but I sure miss just being able to hop in the car and go to a yarn store just because I have a question.
Yeah. Before we lived up here, we lived in Rock Rapids, Iowa, which is just 30 miles east of Sioux Falls. And yeah, it was nice to be able to run over to Athena's, and I went to Barnes and Noble every Tuesday for knit night, and it was nice to have a lot of people around that could help. Before the internet, I had nothing really.
Oh, amen.
Like I said, I didn't have any grandmas that knit. My mom, the only fiber thing my mom did was macrame. She was more of a painter. She loved to paint and she was good at it.
When I was in high school, my mom offered to teach me to knit. And I
Mhm.
said, yeah, cool. And so she did the ribbing part of a little vest.
Mhm.
And I said, okay, so I'll take over now. And so I took over and we went camping and I put my knitting in my camera case. And we were in Albuquerque going through a mall and our van was broken into. And of course they wanted the camera, but they took the camera case with my knitting. And I
Oh.
just said, yep, God is telling me I'm not supposed to knit now. And I gave up and I so regret not having her buy me more yarn and needles and help me start again, but
Yep.
oh well.
I actually took a break for many years because, excuse me, I didn't really know the kinds of things you could make with knitting other than sweaters and scarves. And scarves, please spare me that mile after mile after mile of whatever you're doing. Ick. I hated it. And sweaters, again, I didn't think that the intarsia was for me, and I hadn't another, I don't know if why I didn't have another color work like Fair Isle or something, but anyway, I was knitting a sweater with like Lion Brand, what was it, Thick and Quick or Jiffy something, I don't know. Anyway, it was one of those Lion Brand ones. And I was so bored. And I was always bored knitting scarves. And so I just kind of gave up knitting for a number of years. And then when my daughter was 7, my sister-in-law taught her to crochet at Thanksgiving. And I thought, well, if she's going to need help with that, we're not going to go to the sister-in-law's because she lives 6 hours away. So I picked up crochet and I did that nonstop for a couple of years. Just thought knitting wasn't for me. Well, by then I was going to that knit night at Barnes and Noble in Sioux Falls, and I got introduced to the 2 at a time socks on Magic Loop. And I started knitting those and came all the way back to knitting again. My favorite thing to knit is lace shawls.
Talking about going to local yarn stores. So I was in Rochester this past summer at that zombie knitpocalypse. And I met a gal from Sioux Falls who plans to open a yarn store down there
Really?
Cool.
next fall. Yep, it's gonna be, it's gonna be called Prairie Roads Yarn Shop.
Okay.
She didn't have her location yet, but she's got some really neat ideas about classes and that kind of stuff. So I thought that was pretty exciting that,
Great.
yeah, so I'll keep you guys posted as I hear more from her, but her name's
Yeah.
Jane Taylor. She's actually retiring from the Sioux Falls Library System
Oh,
in Sioux Falls.
okay.
And
What's her name again, Carrie?
it is Jane Taylor.
I feel like I should know her, but we've had so many years since we had an in-person library conference. I'm not picturing her.
Yeah, she's I don't, she's retiring, I think, either she's retiring or she already retired, and that now she's taking this time to get situated for opening this yarn store. So I thought that was super exciting.
It is. There used to be one down by the railroad tracks. There's a bit of strip malls there east of 10th Street.
Oh, really?
Yep, but I went in there one time, asked a couple of questions, and the clerk was so rude.
Oh,
Just basically said, "You're on your own," you know, and I was like, okay, I'm done with this place. And then it was closed shortly thereafter, which didn't surprise me in the least.
there's a new yarn store up in Fargo.
Yep, Prairie something.
Well, that's Prairie Fibers in Moorhead.
Yeah. Oh, and there's another new one.
There's another new one in Fargo. It's in like a little strip mall. I can't think of the name of it, but I was in there this summer. I don't think they've been open very long, but they had some really nice stuff too. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Sounds like next summer our guild might want to do an informal trip up to Fargo Moorhead.
Cool. I hope they decide to go up to Shepherd's Harvest again. I was supposed to go the first time and I ended up having to go to a funeral.
Yeah.
Oh,
We
that
are
was fun.
planning. We are planning to do that again, so.
Good. I am thrilled.
Yeah, we had all it set up for
For
what,
this year.
2 years ago, wasn't it, that we were gonna go, and then, or last year, anyway, COVID happened.
Yeah, we've actually had it set up for 2 years now and had to cancel it because of COVID.
Yep.
Yeah.
Has anybody been up to the Nome Schoolhouse?
No.
So my son-in-law was there. They were doing, he works for Jamestown College, and they were doing like a tour of small businesses. And they went to the Nome Schoolhouse, and he said it is amazing in there.
Cool.
Yeah, I belong to their Facebook group and they've really got it. They've been working on it a lot. And the gal from Kindred, you know, that does the spinning, and
Chris Armbrust.
yes, she's doing her thing there now.
Okay.
Or
Well,
she's
didn't
got,
she and another girl and another woman do that together?
yeah, something like that. Yeah,
But they're even doing like weddings there.
yeah.
Kind of become an event center as well as the
Yeah.
fiber. So
Yeah.
I kind of want to go up there and
Yeah.
just visit it, to walk through. He said it was so nice in there. He said it's almost kind of like a boutique hotel.
Cool.
Interesting.
So I thought it was kind of funny. He texted me and he's like, "Have you heard of this place?" I'm like, "Yep, I have, but I haven't been there." I'm like, "Why are you there?" But
That's funny.
so the yarn store in Fargo is called the Bountiful U, EWE. So if
Okay.
you're ever up there, and Prairie Fiber Arts is a really nice one too in Moorhead. But
I haven't been to any of them up there.
oh,
I tried to go to one time a number of years ago now, but it was during the Fargo Fiber Festival, and so the yarn shop itself was closed.
oh, I suppose they had a booth out there and
Yep, exactly. So I've never actually been in any yarn store up there.
Well, you want to know something? The Prairie Fiber Arts, I was up there, my kids live up in Fargo, so I go up there all the time, but I stopped in the store and she was telling me that she does like a pop-up shop and she had been in Aberdeen, like,
Really?
yeah. And I'm like, huh, I said, I never heard about it, you know, and I'm originally from Aberdeen, so I feel like, you know, I see a lot of stuff that goes on up there. But yeah,
Yeah.
she does these pop-up shops where she takes a bunch of product and she goes there and there's somewhere else. I wonder if it was bulked into the quilt shop and does a pop-up shop there.
There's a number of knitters in Aberdeen. I'm surprised I haven't ever heard of it.
Well, and apparently she said they didn't have very good turnout. I'm like, well, are you putting it on Instagram? And she said, well, she thought she had it on Facebook. I wasn't talking to the owner. I was just talking to somebody that was working there, but it's somebody
Sure.
that has been to our event to North
Yeah.
Country before. Because
Okay.
she was telling me how she was kind of, you know, sad that we weren't meeting in person this year. But
Sure.
yeah, I thought that was interesting. I guess if it's on Facebook, I probably don't see it, but
Problem is, I don't go on any social media often enough to notice stuff like that anymore.
yeah.
I used to all the time, but I scroll for a few minutes and I'm done. I just can't handle anymore.
Yep, I can totally relate to that.
Well, you can go down the rabbit hole pretty easy.
Oh, yeah.
So the next thing
brother-
you know, 2 hours have gone by and you haven't gotten anything done. So
Yep. My
yeah.
brother refused to join Facebook until 2017. He finally joined, and he's 5 years older than I am. And now he posts somewhat regularly, but yeah, I don't know how much time he spends on it. Although he always sees stuff that I've missed. Well, Jerry, is the trapping getting a little easier?
Yes.
Good.
Well, I don't know if I've been concentrating on doing my left hand picking, and so that's getting better. So therefore, everything else seems to be a little easier. So
Sure.
I think it's all about the practice. And
Yep.
I think part of my trouble is that I crochet and how I hold my fingers, not the crocheting itself, but the tension that I use for my crocheting, you know, is in your left hand. And I don't tension real heavy with crochet, but with this, you need to do a little more. And so all of a sudden my yarn is just like loose in my hand. And so I think it's a matter of playing with how I hold the yarn probably. Anyway.
I have actually found crocheting was a benefit to me in getting the tension in, because I knit holding the yarn in my left hand.
Yeah, yeah. So
So
then
I knit and crochet and tat the same way with all of them. So
yeah. And so the new hand, which would be your right hand, is just not, yeah.
mhm. I cannot get that tight enough unless I have that pinky wrapped. And even then, I kind of grab it and throw like this. I can't pick.
Yeah. that's how I pick is how I hold it in my hand to pick is kind of how you hold it to crochet, and
Yep.
that sort of yeah. Yeah, that the old hand memory is strong.
Yep. But it'll come.
Yeah, I think I just need to do practice, 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 like you
Yep.
said.
Make a bunch of hats to donate to charity.
Yeah, exactly. And as soon as I lay it down, I pick it up the same way I always do.
Yeah. You're gonna do that.
Yeah.
There is something very satisfying to my psyche about trapping the right hand yarn, where you wrap, wrap, unwrap. I don't know. There's something about the rhythm of that that my brain likes.
I think that's why I like Fair Isle as well, because you know, for my 20 years of my work, I did mathematics type. I was in the budget office at SDSU, and so the repetition of the Fair Isle, the patterns and everything kind of speaks to my mathematical side.
Yep. I'm very numbers oriented myself.
Yeah, and so I really like it. I love the charts and all of that stuff too. And I think that's why.
I have so many Fair Isle charts saved, and I have Fair Isle chart books.
Yeah.
I tend not to buy patterns per se, but rather take an existing pattern and make it into a Fair Isle pattern.
Yeah. Well, once you do enough, I think that's not so hard. You know, if you take a basic stockinette, yeah.
Well, and that's how I designed this hat. The hardest part was figuring out how to do the decreases in pattern.
Yeah. Now the term lice, is that, it makes me smile just thinking about it. Is that's just lice? It's not a Norwegian term that means something else.
No, they use it, the word, they have a different word that means lice.
Okay.
Yeah. But it was chosen because of how it looks,
Sure.
like lice on your sweater.
Yeah.
How you doing, Barb?
Oh, I'm doing, just noticing I got some lice that kind of got into mine.
It's okay.
It's okay. I don't care. Family coming home.
So that
Elizabeth,
Arna and Carlos podcast I was just talking about a little while ago, their
Yep.
most recent episode is on the lice pattern.
Ah,
I haven't watched it yet. It's sitting in my to be watched list.
I have a miles long to be watched list. I have too many interests sometimes, and every time I see something that looks like it might be fun to watch, I stick it in watch later, and I never get around to it.
Yeah, I hear ya.
Elizabeth, I'm
what-
going to tell you, I got my phone camera to work not by logging into a separate Zoom, but by hooking it up to USB instead of trying to
Oh,
Wi-Fi.
that makes so much sense.
Yep, and it's working perfectly. So in case you ever
Great.
come across somebody else that needs help with that,
Okay. Thank you.
absolutely.
So one of the bad things that happened during COVID is, I started watching a lot more YouTube, and I've really gotten into these traffic things where it's compilations of dash cams where people are doing incredibly stupid things. So I no longer like to drive. Every time I'm on the highway, I'm like, okay, what is everybody around me doing? Which is probably good, but I am so scared now of what other people are doing.
Oh dear. Where did you grow up?
Colorado Springs.
Oh, okay. Jerry, you'll be interested to know that although we didn't have a lot of people signing up for classes, we are nationwide. This morning I had somebody from Washington in my class, and I noticed in the registrations we had somebody from Georgia and somebody from California.
That's
In the
cool.
class. Yeah.
So gals, you're recording this. Are you gonna have it available or something if somebody wanted to watch it later?
Yes. So I'm not doing it on a day-by-day basis because I discovered that it takes too long to upload the videos. I can't get them done in one night. So at some point this coming week, early this coming week, they will be put on YouTube, and then I will send to the registered members of the class the link to the video. And I'll do that early each week. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, one thing somebody from our own guild, Becca, I don't know what her last name
Becca
is.
Herman.
The student,
Yeah, Herman.
I thought when I saw Barb's email, I thought that was actually Becca because I couldn't remember Becca's last name. And she wanted Fair Isle, and after everybody got on, I wonder if she signed up for Jean's class, without realizing that was probably not a beginner class. I don't know. Anyway, she was talking to me the other day about beginner Fair Isle. She'd knitted a sweater that she spun the yarn herself, but it was way, way too tight in the yoke. It was like sucked up, you know, you couldn't see all of her stitches even. It was, and so I suggested the classes and she indicated she was going to sign up. So I don't know if she signed up for jeans or she just missed this. I don't know what her situation is, but I think she could benefit from this. And
Yeah, we'll see if, I'll check again for next week's classes late next week to make sure that I get the URL to everybody. Yeah, I will look for her name.
I don't
Yep.
remember seeing it in the enrollments.
And maybe she had a conflict or something. I don't know. I haven't talked to her since, but I said something about, you know, classes closing due to lack of enrollment. And she made the comment, well, there'll be one more tonight. And that's the last, I haven't seen her since, so I don't know. She's a student.
Yeah, she's
here.
not listed.
Yeah.
She's not listed on any of the classes.
Oh, well, maybe she had a time conflict or something. She
Could
is a
be.
student, so I don't know what her schedule is at all.
I've been so proud of my daughter. She never wanted to learn from me. She taught herself to knit when we were at our cabin. She asked if I had any extra knitting needles. I said, no, I didn't bring any with me. So she found a couple of leftover paintbrushes from those watercolor sets you buy for kids. And she found an old skein of yarn in there. I don't know why it was in there, but it was. And she went on YouTube, taught herself to knit. She was 12 years old.
Oh, isn't that something?
Every so often she'll ask me a question, but for the most part, we don't work well together as far as her
Yeah.
listening to my teaching. I tried to teach her piano when she was 6 and 7 years old too, and that didn't work. We're too alike.
My dad said his mom taught him, gave him a piano lesson when he was a child, and then said, you can either continue piano with me or go play cricket. Guess what he chose? That was Australia, of course, so would have been baseball if it had been America, but
I was gonna say, where are they playing cricket in the US? I'm sure somewhere they do.
here, there's a cricket club at SDSU.
No kidding.
It's mostly the Indian and Pakistani and Sri
Sure.
Lankan students, but
That makes sense. When you think about it too, being a land grant college and there's an equestrian area. My daughter's roommate does a lot of crochet and she's picked up knitting more in the last year or two also. So I did a D-stash one time, sent a bunch of yarn with my daughter for her roommate, and she just loved it. And some of it was natural fibers and some of it wasn't. And she typically knits with the cheapest yarn she can find because she's a college student, but I thought I'd give her some nicer stuff.
It seems to be a thing nowadays because my granddaughter, I taught my daughters how to crochet and they didn't do it for, you know, a number of years in high school because they were busy. And now they're in college and the two that are in college are doing it all the time, have created groups at their schools that get together and do it. So it's kind of, and in fact, one of our granddaughters worked at Joann's this summer here, and her mother said her yarn stash grew exponentially this summer.
I bet.
SDSU has a knitting club.
Yeah.
I'm
Really?
the advisor of it.
Cool.
Yeah.
I just realized I don't have a key with my charts, and I didn't say specifically what the decrease method was, but the diagonal lines are knit two togethers or whatever decrease you want to use.
Marta, what do you use to make your charts?
The program is called, I gotta get it right. I can never remember exactly until I look. Envision It. So it's like you take the N off Envision and replace it with the word knit.
Oh. I use Stitch Knittery or Stitch Mastery,
Yep.
and that one automatically generates the legend for it.
So does Envision It. I just,
Okay, just didn't.
I take elements. I don't necessarily do the whole pattern in Envision It. I create the chart and export it as a JPEG.
Yeah,
So if I were to pay more attention, I would have gotten it.
yeah, I hear you. I do that too, actually.
It's really easy for me to miss stuff because I'm seeing with eyes that have seen it all before.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
if I were somebody that had not done charting before, I would realize it wasn't there.
When I took a class in Vogue Knitting Live on Japanese knitting, and that's one of the things that I really like about Japanese knitting is they don't have written instructions. They
Right.
only have charts, and the symbols are standard. It doesn't matter who publishes the patterns, the symbols mean the same thing. And we have some of that. I mean, a blank box is usually knit on the right side, purl on the wrong, but
Yep.
but I really like that the symbols actually mean something.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, especially with the advent of Ravelry and self-publishing, we've lost a bunch of standardization because people just do what they want.
Well, and they're doing it on Excel, and Excel doesn't have all of those symbols.
Right.
Um,
I used to have what was it? I want to say it was the ASC2 code to make the symbols, and it would type. So in a word processing program, you could type.
Yep.
And it would do the chart just like what this is, but it was so cumbersome to find which symbol I needed and then to put in the ASC2 code.
mhm.
So
Yeah,
I'm glad there's charting. And then with the Knit Companion app that I use, the creator of that also has one called Pattern Genius,
yeah.
which is handy if you're on the go. It's like a $3 a month subscription to use it, but that's just as handy as the program on my computer sometimes.
Yeah, I have to admit I've never used that, but I like the idea of it. I like the larger screen when I'm designing. Or
Yeah, I mainly use it for if I just need something real quick.
yeah. Yeah.
And it's only iOS. So I only discovered it when I bought my iPad to teach Knit Companion for iOS. Otherwise, I'd only ever used it on Android. Pattern Genius isn't available on Android.
Oh, well, I have to admit, my phone is an Android, but I use Knit Companion on my iPad because, again, I like the larger screen.
Well, and the iPad has more features than the
Yeah, it does.
Android.
Yeah.
And that's because of the API. There's something in Android that doesn't let them do something that they can do in the iOS. I don't know the details of it, but I've heard her talk about it before.
Mhm. And I've
She
heard
does
other people talk about
presentations.
that too.
Yeah. The creator has done presentations at almost all of the Vogue Knitting Lives.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I've gone to a couple of them.
don't
when I
remember how
decided to actually,
I don't remember how I first got started with Knit Companion. I want to say it was probably because of the Very Pink Knits YouTube channel, Stacey Perry. And she's done, I think, about 15 videos on Knit Companion now and how to do this and that and the other thing.
I got started when I went to Vogue Knitting Live in Minneapolis in 2016. I'm not even sure it was out yet.
Possible it wasn't.
Either that or it was just out and I can't remember which way it was, but I have this little phone stand that's a Knit Companion phone stand
Still
because
have
they
it.
were handing out freebies there.
Oh,
And I
they-
thought, oh, well, I got a freebie. I should take a look at the app and fell in love with
Sure.
it immediately.
Yep. Like I said, I never print patterns anymore. And I use it for sewing patterns and tatting patterns, anything, because you keep your place on every page.
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah, I haven't used it for sewing patterns, but yes, I've used it for tatting and crochet and knit.
Do you have the full subscription?
Yep.
I just found out that you can have it advance written instructions line by line.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Huh.
I've set up the key and the chart pieces, but I had never done the written. I saw it somewhere else and I was like, ooh, I got to try this.
Yeah, I've gotten to the point where I try and knit mostly by chart.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so wonderful for chart. You know, there was a pattern, I bought a kit somewhere and it only came with the printed pattern.
Mm-hmm.
And I was using highlighter tape, and every 4 rows or something, I had to replace the highlighter tape. And
Yep. I hated
oh
using
yeah,
highlighter tape.
this is
And
why I
tried
like
the
knit.
magnet boards and
Yeah.
oh, this is way better. Plus I get to save paper, and anytime
Yeah.
I can do that. When I worked at Citibank, I swear they killed a forest every week.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not a huge environmentalist, but I'm very aware of how the population of our globe has changed over my lifetime. So I'm concerned with what we're doing.
Yeah.
Well, Barb and Jerry, do you feel like you've got it? Maybe not the physical movements yet, but your brain gets it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I do too. I think I've got it. I'm almost got this mess straightened out here, and then I'm gonna start on the snowflake.
Cool.
So, say if you let us know if this runs again, then, by then I should know if I need to go back over something.
Sure.
Yeah, that's where I am too. We might have to double
Yeah,
check later.
I'm right there with you, Jerry.
Well, I will get this up early this week and get an email out to you guys with the link for it, and
Yeah.
it will just be on YouTube. But it's not going to be searchable because you had to pay for the class. We don't want to give it to everybody. So it's going to be on
Yeah.
YouTube as a private video. So you will need to have the URL that I send you.
Okay,
Okay.
sounds good.
Sounds good.
Okay, and this has been lots of fun. I know it took it a
Check
long time
me
ago, but
because-
I just totally didn't, get to the point where I was remembering anything. And
Sure.
then I found my hat the other day. We were cleaning out a closet and I'm going, oh, yeah, there.
Kind of fun to come across those things, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Remember
So,
to check your junk folder for that email, because my email to you went to your junk.
Yep,
folder.
and I never thought of that until Chelsea or Jessie came over and she said, I'm going, oh, thank you
Yep.
for coming over.
Yeah.
Well, and somebody this morning too, it went to their junk folder. So I don't think Gmail likes our domain emails.
That could be, that could be, but, from now on, I think I will be checking that more often.
So. Are we done then, Marta? Are you,
Well, we can be. Like I said at the beginning, I'm willing to stay on till 4 if you need me to, but if you are ready to be done, that is fine too.
Yeah.
It's up to you. You paid for the time.
I think we just need to do some work on the stuff that we,
yeah,
and, as long as we can go through it again if we need to, then
Sure.
I'm okay.
Well, and Jerry, you have my email, and Barb, I put it in the chat, but if you didn't get it, Jesse has it.
Yeah, yeah.
I've been harassing you a lot, but that's most, if I check my junk mail first, then I wouldn't have had to keep harassing them.
Fine.
But anyway,
It's fine.
oh,
It was good to see you all.
yes.
Yeah, it was good to see everybody.
Good
Fun.
luck with your Fair Isle, and send me a picture when you get done with your hat. I'd love to see it.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay, yeah, thanks a lot, Mark.